Good evening, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. We are delighted to have WPG alumni, Filip Korosec. Filip, thank you so much for joining us to offer some words of wisdom this evening. We're really looking forward to your comments.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I know you're no stranger to this platform and indeed the live tour as well. So it's
Yes,
good to see you back here.
thanks.
Before I sort of tell people about what's going to happen tonight, like what have you been up to lately?
So this where I am currently, this is Ljubljana's Academy of Music. I'm having some chamber music rehearsals here. I have a concert on Sunday with some of my colleagues from when I studied here, and then I'm going back to Sweden. I live in Sweden now. So I have a couple of gigs there with Rasmus, another one of WPG alumni.
Yeah,
So we have a full schedule during the summer. So I'm here in Slovenia visiting family, of course, but also playing some concerts, and then I'm going back. Yeah.
yeah, brilliant. And for people that don't know, Philip's currently just finishing up in Stockholm. Am I right in saying that? Or have you got one more year?
Yeah. I finished studying, so now I'm freelancing and teaching in Stockholm area and really all over kind of the Nordic countries, wherever I get gigs. Really, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, you were very well utilised in the live tour. I think your nickname was Shredder because you had so many notes, or
Yes.
Striker maybe. Uh,
Yeah, I think so.
yeah, so I thought what we'd do first off, Philip, is just maybe play a little bit of yourself in action. Do you want to just explain what this piece is?
Yeah, so the piece Portals by Bruce Hamilton is quite a fun piece to play, I would say. I love performing that piece whenever I have the ability to bring all the gear, and the setup is quite big, so that's not very often. But whenever I do have the possibility, I bring the gear, and it's a piece for setup and then tape. So you're playing, it's about like 12, 13 minutes, quite intense in terms of rhythm and like harmonic stuff that's going on. It's really wild and has a lot of also found sounds in the tape. So it's really fun to play. Yeah,
Great. All right. Well, we are going to go over to watch you play just the final few minutes
perfect.
of this piece.
I forgot I dropped a stick in this performance actually, right in the end. So it is quite wild, as you can see. Yeah, I think you're muted, Tim.
Schoolboy error. I just heard it go ting ting. Very nice. Yeah, great job. I recognise that hall as well. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I suppose, I know, because I know you a little bit. I know you've been quite successful in competition. Have you used that piece like a few times in that sort of situation?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I've
I
used
did.
it a couple of times. And specifically that competition that I won that has gotten me quite many gigs, actually, the Swedish one.
Yeah,
I played that in the finals there, actually. And later, when I had some feedback from the jury, they said that it was the programming that they thought would like stuck out the most. Like everyone was playing like regular stuff, and I was playing, this and then some like minimalism stuff, and then Frozen in Time as the last piece. So it was quite
yeah,
all over the place, and they really liked that. So yeah,
great. I think that's where percussion comes into itself, isn't it? When you can
exactly.
offer some diversity. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're going to move across to our first act of this evening. That's going to be Burke. Hey, Burke, how you doing?
Hey, how are y'all? I'm good.
Yeah, good. So if you want to just introduce yourself to Philip and maybe tell everyone at home what you're going to play, I'll cue the video up for you.
My name is Burke. I'm currently living in Knoxville, Tennessee, going to the University of Knoxville, Tennessee. I'm a rising junior. I'm going to be playing Time for Marimba by Minoru Miki. It's a piece that I played for about a year working on it that kicked my butt originally, but I was able to kind of pull together into something cohesive. And this video that you're about to watch is the product of that.
Perfect. Great. Yeah, it does tend to kick everyone's butt when they start that piece. It's not very easy.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, perfect.
All right, so shall we go ahead and hear it?
Yeah. Nice. Really great playing.
Thank
Great,
you.
great, great. Such a long piece, and there is so much material. Kind of course, something repeats, but like there is just so much to take in with
Yeah.
this piece. So I think it's really nice. I think especially like when the theme comes back right in the end, in the last, like all the dynamics and everything just kind of comes back. It's really, really, really nice. Yeah.
I love the
Thank you.
piece. It's one of my
Yeah.
favorites.
Great. Why did you pick this piece? Like, what spoke to you about it?
My professor recommended it to me,
Yeah.
and then I decided that I really wanted to do it. I've always had a big interest in contemporary and like
Mm,
off center music that's new and challenges the sounds of our ears, and also knowing the history of this piece and but the Minoru Miki and Keiko Abe kind of it's their convergence, you know, a little
mm,
bit. I think that's really cool. The contrast and the atonal, the sounds, it's just all of it sounded so new and so interesting. And that's when
mm.
I knew when I saw the technicalities. And there's just so much about it that was just like magnetic. It's the style, I suppose.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, it's really, really nice when you find a piece that's really like you're so drawn to it, sort of. I because when I started playing percussion, I wasn't so into like researching new stuff. So this piece hit me completely like out of the blue. I just heard a colleague play it, and I just thought, what is this? Like
Yeah,
it's so different, and it's like just so much to take in. So it's really nice. Yeah, but I never played it myself. So take everything that I say with a grain of salt, as you should probably, anyways. So I listened to your whole recording a couple of times on the way here in the morning. Um, and I mean, first of all, I used to play Steven's grip, and now I play Burton. I had to change because my arms just couldn't take it. I was too young and too weak to play it. So it's really nice to see it. It looks and it sounds so relaxed and so natural when you play things, especially like all like the whole beginning and everything. Like you get such a nice sound. I don't know how good you are at recording or whatever, but it really like I could really like with the headphones, it sounded great. So I was really surprised. Usually, when you just record yourself, things don't sound that great. But I have to say, it
yeah.
was nice. Yeah.
Thank you.
Um, so I maybe we can start from top to bottom, and I'll just say a couple of things that I thought about. And as I said, take it with a grain of salt.
Hmm.
Um, and just use what you think is valuable. And because I didn't play this piece, I can't really say so much about like the overall um, interpretation in terms of like big picture stuff. I think that you have quite set and you know what you want to do. I think if we had a lesson, like if I was your teacher now, I would just point out like a couple of things on every page, and then you'll see if you like some of those.
Yeah.
um, so I think because this piece is fairly long, like it's more than 10 minutes, and you have a lot of time. Um, no pun intended. I would say you can take more time to develop the dynamics in the beginning. I think you take quite a bit of liberty, and I think that's perfectly fine in contemporary music. You should be doing that. Um, but I would say try to keep it down a bit in the beginning in the dynamics, just so that you have somewhere to go later in the piece, so that you don't show so much right in the beginning, and then we start yawning like in the middle because you've shown us everything in the first minute, kind of. I'm not saying that's what you do, but I
Yeah.
think you can take it a bit slow, and it's written in that way. Also, you have only mezzo forte basically until the end of the first page. Like that's your highest dynamic. So I think you can really take it chill and work instead. And I could see that you worked with like the sound of the mallets, like you were using the mallets to like get some different timbres and stuff. And I think that's precisely what you should be doing. And I think that will keep us interested enough, especially because it's such a mystical part of the music. People, especially if you can start it just as quiet as you did, so that we have to be really attentive to hear what is going on. People just kind of they're still and they're listening, and you can keep them there for a surprising amount of time. So I think don't be afraid to do that. And then when you do get to the very loud parts, like at the end of the first page, I would say that is where you can show them, now this is a different dynamic. So that show really a big difference between the mezzo forte and then the fortissimo that you have in the end. And I think especially there's a couple of places where you have subito differences in dynamics and really
Yeah.
check out that you're doing those immediately and that you're not like staying somewhere else in the dynamics. I think that's the first page was really, really very nice.
Thank you.
But think about the dynamics and then think about what can I do if this isn't interesting enough when you do the dynamics like a bit more chill kind of. Think about, okay, what can I do with the piece if this isn't enough in case you decide that it isn't enough. Then you can try different like striking spots. You can try using as you did with the mallets. You can also, you have a nice accelerando and ritardando in like the third row. And I think since this is like, it's written in a very ambiguous way, like it's a 6-note phrase, but written in quintuplets, but no one knows that, when you're playing.
Yeah.
But it should be like a bit ambiguous. I think you can take a bit more, like make it like a bigger flair there if you feel like you do need something in the first page, sort of, I would say. But other than that, I really enjoyed like the landscape that you created, really.
Yeah, that was a big focus point for learning all this solo. So it's really good to hear. It's really good to hear that.
Yeah,
That's
nice.
something I really
perfect.
wanted to get across.
Yeah. So that we get a feeling of that flowy type situation. Because then when the first page is kind of finishing and you're getting onto the second page and like the whole second row of second page there, that's like so extremely like just fortissimo possibile, like accents, very strict rhythms. And there you can show like a big difference. And that I think it's like the first point of the piece where you should aim towards. You have a little thing at the end of the last page, but really aim for the second page, second row, where you're like, okay, this is now where I'm really loud. And this is a C, so it is like quite low, so don't break the bar, obviously. If you want to get really, really loud, you can play on the outer edge of the bar. So you get quite a lot of the sound, but you breaking the bar is almost impossible. You can hit it really, really hard. The sound is not going to be as good as in the middle, of course, but you're hitting like the right on the edge, like as you would like accidental sometimes with the chords. You try to be like as close to your body as you can and hit it there. And then you can go and also add some articulation when you're hitting it there. So I think it might help with like the super fast rhythms. And then because this part is so rhythmical, I know that the piece is very rubato in a sense, but I think this, if you can make it locked in as much as you can in some sort of a grid, I think it would be a very nice contrast. I think you do that with the rhythms that are very clear, but then with the quintuplets and quarter notes, the quarter notes seem too long. Like you play all the rhythms, and it's like, oh, and now I can chill a bit on the like piano tremolo, which is true. But I think if you can keep the intensity throughout the whole row, sort of, and really make it like, oh yeah, this is now like whatever you're doing, and then you do take it on, and then you can relax a bit there. And I think that's such a good point where you do again more dynamics. And so this, I'm talking about the beginning of the third row of the second page now. There are almost no bar lines, so it's very difficult to speak about this, but you know what I mean, I guess. That I would keep extremely chill and very quiet. It's pianissimo and it's just a little crescendo and decrescendo.
Yeah.
Think about the rhythm still so that you don't stay on that for too long. So you don't have to count it or anything, just so that you're moving forward. And don't do too much in dynamics. I would instead, again, try maybe something to do with intensity. Maybe you can just change the speed of your tremolo instead of maybe going louder. And then you have another, like the last quintuplet. And then you have a whole nice, tremolo part, and then quintuplets come back again. So you can kind of, this is the first part that is reminiscent of the feeling from the beginning. So really have that feeling of stillness and just floatiness. And then
Yeah.
it's like as you said, really big contrasts, which I think you have to show us, and then be able to play like a maniac and then be completely calm the very next second, like nothing happened, just the second before. And I think if you can do that with those couple of rows here, the effect is, yeah, just overwhelming for the listeners. And that's, I think, what's supposed to happen. Like, they're just getting bombarded with all this information. They're just sitting there. They don't even have time to think, sort of. That's kind of how I perceived the piece the first time, and I thought that was just the best part.
Yeah.
You can kind of do that, I would say. And then I think the piumoso part is really nice. It's very clear that it's like a quintuplet thing going on, and you're doing it very nicely. I think the dynamics, like the reset on the forte, is really nice in the last couple of bars. And then on page 3, the theme comes back.
Mm-hmm.
And here you have, it's basically the same thing, but you have a couple of things that you can decide on. Should I play it the same way as before, or should I not? What were your thoughts about this? Like, if you look at the first page and this page, like, how did you think about it?
Another thing I mentioned earlier, focusing on one thing about this piece, but another big focus was a focus on the form and trying to communicate so coherent form to the audience. So this piece is actually written in kind of a sonata form. So in order to get that across, whenever I played the theme for the second time, I wanted it to be mostly similar, but there are dynamic changes that are written in by Minoru and Keiko. So the point was to play everything mostly with the same style and the same feel, but bring out the dynamic changes so that it feels different but the same. As if to say, it's a sonata form.
Exactly. No, that is exactly the right way how I would approach it. Also, I never thought about sonata because it sounds so much like, it sounds so different.
Crazy.
Than sonata. Exactly.
Yeah.
But nice to hear that. That's really, really good. But I would say, yeah, there should be a difference in dynamics, and there is a difference written in dynamics. But here, similarly, I would keep the mezzo forte lower than what you did. I think the mezzo forte in the first row and then the fortissimo and the forte in the third and fourth row sounded too similar to me. And of course, when you don't have the music, you can't tell that those are different dynamics, of course, as a listener. But I think it's important to make those, to decide if you do want to make those distinctions. And then if you don't, then at least it's a conscious choice that you have made. So try to think a bit about that, because the dynamics are written differently, very clearly. So try to think about this and see what you can workshop from this. I think should sound, as you said, like the feeling should be the same, but it should be more present, because it's not like as quiet as it can be, but rather just piano, and then the dynamics in general are louder. So what you can do also, if you want to make it a bit different, I would say the accelerando and ritardando that are also here, you can make them more extreme than you did the first time, for example, just so that we get more movement. Although that is, of course, extremely difficult when you're playing super fast, very loud. Immediately you have to go to piano, and then you're doing a crescendo but a ritardando at the same time. That's like, it doesn't go together in my head, sort of. But I think you do that really well. Like you start pianissimo and then you do a crescendo but a ritardando, and then you like land on the tempo 1. I think you do that really, really well. So kudos for it. It was really nice.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, but it's a really cool effect. So it's really nice that you managed to do it. And then I would say, keep the intensity from tempo 1, sort of. It is a forte with a little decrescendo, but then you have a crescendo poco a poco back forte. I think if you can keep the intensity there somehow, so that we know that this is a kind of a louder part in that sense, I think it will do wonders in terms of, we're hearing the same material, but this is another repeat. Like, it's the same part, but it is actually quite different in how you play it. And then, of course, when you get to the sextuplets later, you have a very big crescendo. And there is also another part where I would aim towards the fortissimo in the last part of the, like, if you can make that as you did before, it's basically the same part. So that's what you do. Yeah, perfect. And then you are actually aiming for the fortissimo possibile on the 4th page, the 3rd row, really. That is where you should be aiming that whole part towards. And especially when you're playing the beginning of the 4th page, there you have a pianissimo and accelerando and crescendo, basically up until the high point of this entire part. And that, I think, is a part that I would practice a lot, because you want to get that. It has to be unwavering. That is the part that you have to know the best, sort of.
Yeah.
So that you can go from I'm calm, sort of intense because it's something is happening, and then you need to, this is like I don't know how long it takes, but it's like 2 whole rows of music that goes in one direction. So if you are wavering then in that, it doesn't have the same effect. It really needs to be extremely clear. And then when you get to the tremolos, what you can do is either be louder or be faster. I think you can maybe either slow down and try to have a lot of movement with your arms, even, so that you get a lot of height. So it's going to be easier to be loud, or you get even more intense with the speed. But I think I would pick the height and the dynamics itself here to really try and be extremely intense in this part. Of course, the faster and the louder you can be, that's perfect. But it's really high, so it's to get a good sound as well. I think it's a very very difficult part to after all that are happening, sort of. Then you just have this super high up tremolo on one note, and it has to be massive. So I think what might actually help is if you heighten the marimba. I know this is maybe a bit counterintuitive, because you want to get height, but I think when you're quite, if I stand up, when you're quite low here, it's more difficult to use your shoulders and everything. But if you're here, all of a sudden you get quite a lot of movement in that way. So maybe that's just a personal thing, but the older I am, the higher I put my marimba, sort of. It just feels easier to play. I'm not sure which marimba you're using, but I started on the number 2, and then I was on 4, and I'm playing on 6 or 7 on the Yamaha models. So it's just really maybe it's a me thing, I don't know. But try it out and see if that helps. I think it might. And then I would say, you kind of have this whole part that is just a slow. It's a similar part than you had before, with the little slow and quiet and fast, or these aren't fast, but they're loud. So try to do a similar thing as you did before. And then you get to the groovy part.
Yeah, the fun part.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you say that it's fun, I'm pretty sure that's why it's so good. Because I think when we got to that part, I was like, okay, now we're cooking. This is the stuff. That's how it should be. Yeah, it's really and you have a really nice groove. I don't know what your background is or everything, but this whole piece is very flowy and stuff. But when you get to this part, it's so nice to hear, okay, now we're locking in. It's a groovy thing, and it's flowing really well for you. So I think you really don't have to do much with this part. I think it's perfect as it is. Think about the dynamics just when things start getting a bit more crazy. I think as soon as things start getting crazy, then it's difficult for you to go to subito piano and do a little bit of crescendo, decrescendo stuff. I think that is something that I would say you can add to this part. If you don't, I think it grooves well and it's perfect. It adds what it's supposed to. But you can think about it and see if you can get something more from that.
Yeah.
And then the transition to the next part. I see you did you played it with one hand, but what is actually written on the page is you play. You're supposed to get to the same speed on the 8th notes as what is happening after in the 16th notes.
Yes.
So what you did now was like sacrifice that for the sake of accuracy, because they are quite far apart. So you do like with one hand instead, and then you start with the right wherever you need it, really. But I think you should try and play it with both and take your time with that. That part is really, it even says that it should be as many notes as you need. Volta ad autem. So just play that F for, as long as you want to get to the desired tempo, and then just move your right hand up. If you can do that, it's probably going to be like, you're blowing everyone's mind. So they're like, and then they almost don't know what's going on. It's like, like a completely different part. So I think that's like an effect that you can really use, especially after you have such a nice groovy part before. Try to see if it works. Maybe you'll have to do that just because, it's safer, especially if you're nervous in the moment and stuff. Sometimes we need to find some solutions that make us calm enough so that we can actually play the rest of the piece, even though it's maybe not what exactly is written on the page. And this whole part I thought was really nice. Also, you do dynamics that are written and you do them really well. It's really nice also when the like crazy triplet 16th, 8th note part comes around. It's completely crazy, but it's really fun to listen to, and you do it really well. And then you get to this slow part with the 8th notes, right? And then you should play the melody that's kind of sort of out, but in time, the whole time thing. And here, even though some notes are written in the top, like in the G clef, and some are written in the F clef, I would actually play the accompaniment with your left and play the melody with your right. And I would say that will make it a bit easier for you to be just freer in how you want to phrase and where exactly you want to place the rhythms of the melody. Because now when you're trying to play the accompaniment and the melody with your right, then it's always going to be like you have to account for both with one hand, which is very difficult. And then if you just divide it, I think it might be easier for you to do that. I think it sounds great as it is. You don't have to change it, but I think you can try and at least practice it a bit like that. And you might get some ideas so that you're not so locked into the accompaniment. And then you have to kind of find the little time that you have to play the melody. I would say that's probably something that can help. But it really sounds very nice. So yeah,
Thank you.
think about that maybe. And then you have the octaves part. There, if you can hit all the octaves, that's great. There, I had a lesson with Simone Rubino. I don't know if you know him, but he's an amazing, amazing player. He teaches now in Germany, and he's just, I mean, one of the greats. And he said that every time he wants to be loud, he just tries to be as relaxed as possible. And I find that if I am not relaxed, I try to be loud, I miss much more. So get as loud as you can, as long as you are completely relaxed. And then just add the speed gradually and really take your time with this. I think you've had a year with this piece, which is a long time in a way, but I have played some pieces for 6 years now, and I'm still, doing things to try and make them better. So I think you can take your time. I don't know how your studies look like. Maybe you can't take time, but in a perfect world, I would take time and try to really make it, yeah, as relaxed as possible. And this goes for all the like big octave stuff that you have been doing in this piece. And in general, when you're playing loud and fast, relaxation is the one thing. And then Simone said, oh no, just start as slow as you need to in the dynamics that you want, and then just gradually speed it up. And it has helped me tremendously in the past year or 2 years that I've been using this since I had that lesson. So that's my rant about loud playing. And we get the very quiet grave part where everything's really slow. And the dynamics here are supposed to be very subtle. It says poco when you're doing the crescendo decrescendo. I think of that the same thing that we talked about in the beginning. This should be like a return to mysticism or kind of, floaty feeling. You're just taking us kind of on a cloud of sound somewhere. And it doesn't have to move a lot. There is almost no wind in the cloud. You just do a little swell here and there. That's all there is. And then you have a mezzo forte, and that has to be separate. So we do a little swell, mezzo forte, little swell, little swell, little swell. And then you have a forte again. And that's different, of course, and the material changes. But think about the same feeling that you had in the beginning. I think if you can bring that back, it's going to be perfect. And then just like a little memory of the intense stuff that is happening in between the same feeling that you had in the beginning. And then, of course, the beginning comes back, but this time it's forte. And then it's fortissimo. And then we're just kind of going back. And I think the last, as I said in the beginning, your last page is like, it feels like you have played through the entire piece and you should be tired, but the last page is like, that's the best part, sort of. Everything comes back and everything makes sense in the end. And then you just play the last tremolo, and it's just like, we're just sitting there like, thinking about what happened to us. And I think it's just really perfect. So really good job.
So much.
Yeah, I hope some of this helps. I think you'll have a lesson with a true master of this piece. Sunday, maybe not you, but she is here, and I think you should try and have this recording with her if you can. I think I saw it's, I think her name is Ji Hye Young, or yeah, I think so.
Yes, she was actually the one recording that I referenced the hardest when playing this piece, and she's the marimba player that I want to be exactly like.
Yeah. Like it's just it's just so good. Like so,
you have a session with her actually.
Yeah.
So
sure do.
Yeah,
I sure
I
do.
think
I'm very excited.
Completely perfect for her. I mean, I've told you some things, but maybe what she says is what you should be listening to. So I hope something helps. But really great playing.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
All right, great words, Philip. Thank you. Burke, have you got any lasting questions or?
I don't.
All right.
That was very awesome, though. Thank you so much for all the kind words.
Yeah, that was cool. We had some comments coming in as well. So Ksenia says Philip is a gem.
Oh, thanks, Ksenia. Right back at you.
And William Brown says, one time I started giving a student comments in a masterclass, but then I just asked Philip to do it instead because I knew that he would know the right things to say. What a player.
Yeah, that was actually on the tour. I remember that. Yeah, well, thanks. I'm very happy that you guys think I'm worthy of your trust to just
what
put
a player. Nice one. Okay, but we're going to let you boot off. So thank you very much. Nice
Thank
job.
you.
All right.
Cool.
And I think next up we've got Andy.
Exactly.
Hey, man.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello. Yes.
So, the floor is yours if you want to just introduce what you're going to play. Maybe talk a little bit about yourself. We have plenty of time, so...
Okay. Hi there. My name is Andy. I live in Corpus Christi, Texas. I am a junior right now. I study at Texas A&M University, Corpus Christi with Caleb Pickering. And today I'm playing Etude in C Sharp Minor by Casey Cangelosi.
Perfect. I'm a big Caleb fan, so it's nice to hear someone else.
He's a cool guy.
All right, I think we're pretty much ready. By the way, Corpus Christi and anywhere down there is a lot of fun. We went when me and Jason went on tour for our first tour in 2009. We went to Brownsville.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a lot of good memories down there. Anyway, I digress. Here we go. Here's Casey Cangelosi's performance, or Andy's performance of Casey's piece. Here we go.
Wait, I'm muted. Really nice.
Thank you.
Great. Really, really great. So the same thing as I said before, I have never played this piece, but I did listen to it a couple of times now. And of course, you have a in-house cases specialist there at Corpus Christi, so I'm sure you're getting a lot of feedback from him. But I'll just say a couple of things that I would change, a little bit about dynamics and about the tempi and stuff like that, and then you can see what you wanted to take and what you would like to leave to someone else. And I would say there is a really nice rubato feeling throughout the whole piece. I think you really embrace that. Yeah, just the feeling of being free in time, and I think that's perfect. It says like the whole piece should be rubato and expressive, and then it also says pesante, which should be like kind of heavy, which you also like have throughout the whole piece, which I think is perfect. And it's really nice to hear that although there is like quite a lot of things going on all the time, the overall feeling of the piece is kind of heavy and free, which I think is exactly what you should be aiming for. So I have a couple of notes. And always with this, I think Pius also writes in this way, sort of, and Casey writes in this way, where they have like a marimbistic approach, but it's also kind of sounds like a piano sometimes in the way that they're inspired, I would say. And a lot of the time, what the piano can do, because they have a lot of sustain, is they have some melody that's going on, and then there's like a lot of things going on in the left hand or something a bit similar. And now how you play the pieces, you play everything sort of with a heaviness, even though some things are fast. And I'm wondering, how do you think about the runs right now? Are they more like, oh, I want to just have this gesture in here, or is it more like I would like to play every note? How are you thinking about them right now?
So for the runs, I do like try to make a point of it to play every, because that part's really hard. Just kind of like even getting used to doing something like that. But overall, it's like I do try to hit every note, but I do also view that almost as not necessarily filler, right? Because it's like
Yeah,
I know that like the bass note for each start of each run is like the most important part, right?
exactly.
Because it really complement, and that's what he does a lot throughout the piece. Is that like even that weird that it's like a lateral phrase that happens at the low end of the keyboard, right? It's like the stuff in between. It sounds like it is almost important, but it's not necessarily the melody. A lot of the times, it just sounds like your bass and whatever is in your right hand is just kind of
Exactly.
speaking back and forth to each other, right? So that's kind of,
Yeah.
I don't know. I view it as filler, but I still try to do
You
all
hit everything exactly, and I think that is exactly how it sounds now. It sounds like you are trying to hit every note, like and make it heard, but on the other hand, you view it as filler. And I would say, in order to really decide how you want to play those phrases, go to both extremes. Of course, you still want to be hitting the notes, of course, but
Yeah.
now it feels like you're trying to like make us hear every note as well. I think you can try and go like really soft and just do like kind of, and then do like sort of,
Yeah.
more like how you would maybe play, I don't know, Elias from Djokovic or something like that. When you have a run, it's like, and then when you can play both, you can find a good place between those extremes where you think, oh, this is like how I want it. And I think it's also, of course, a good exercise to be able to do both of those things well. Of course, then you'll be very free to do exactly what you will. Excuse me. So I would say that is like a thing that I would, yeah, just try to experiment around with it a bit. I think when I first heard the piece, I thought, these runs are a bit too present for my liking. But then as I kept hearing the runs, it almost seemed like, no. Casey wrote all of those notes precisely because he wanted all of them heard.
Yeah.
So I think you're kind of in the right middle ground now. I think it would just to do this just so that you have the freedom to do the other things as well. And you can make a more gradual accelerando also, which I think is the one thing that I would change. It feels like the first couple of notes are really slow, and then it gets kind of fast quickly, and then it stays in that tempo, like at the end of the phrase, especially the longer ones. And of course, it's extremely difficult to do it like like a computer would.
Yeah.
But if you can find a way how to, yeah, make them a bit more gradual tempo-wise, I think the feeling is perfect as it should be. And I think doing that exercise, kind of going to extremes, will help you achieve that, or be able to do that a bit more easily. And then I would say the kind of the melody part. You are taking rubato quite seriously. So when you have a melody like that, all the triplets and stuff like that aren't the runs, I think are now, they feel completely out of time to me, because when I don't see the score, I don't know what's happening. So really, it feels like that we're floating. And I think in rubato, that is one way how you can play it, of course. And if that is what you want to go for, that's completely fine. But you can also try to have them just a bit more in time, so that we have some sort of kind of landing on the one or the three or whatever it is, so we get a sort of feeling kind of where you are going. It feels like almost as if you stop completely on like the first triplet, for example, like at the end of the first row. You do like bam, bam, and then bam, bam. It's like it's slow. It stops. The phrase stops there.
Mhm.
And you can do that, of course. But you can try also making it kind of tie into the next phrase so that you don't stop completely. Try and play around with that a bit and see if you like that more. And then you'll
Okay.
see, of course, if that's something that you like or not. It's just a personal preference type of thing, I think. And then there is kind of like the first melody sort of thing in the second page that I would
Mhm.
say is written in a very specific way. So you have like the bass note, sextuplet, and then a grace note to like 8 notes, and then like, triplets, and then another grace note in triplets.
Mhm.
And now you kind of play, and I actually listened to when I listened to your performance a couple of times. I went to listen to Casey's because of course he has all of his things on YouTube, which is great because then we can just hear how he wants it, and that's
Yeah.
great. And he does play it very similarly to you in that sense. It's kind of feels more like a 9-let and then sort of a 5-note, and that kind of a thing, more than like a
Yeah.
6-uplet with a grace note to the next note. And that is also a thing that I would explore. See if you can play like a something like more in that not like I think
Yeah.
both work, of course. But how it's written, if you're playing this for like a jury that doesn't know the piece, they'll probably go like, uh, what is this? On the other hand, if Casey plays it this way, it has to be this way,
Yeah.
So it's a thing that you can try to experiment with and make your own and see if you maybe like that. Um, just to see if that is something that you would like to explore.
Okay.
And then I think the end of the segment A is like a really nice. You have really nice kind of phrases toward the high notes. Like it really feels like a solid beginning and then like a nice lift, which I think it's really nice. It's quite difficult for me. I played Stevens before, of course, and then I switched to Burton and I played very much like this for a long time. So hearing someone play it like so open, it's really nice to hear. So that was
Thank
really,
you.
I really like that actually. And then we get to like the little slower part on page 3, which I think I would advise you to do a similar experiment in terms of timing. You are slowing down the second parts of the rows quite a lot when you have like the little tremolo thing in the left and you're playing the 8th notes. It feels like the music stops there. So try and see if maybe you play it a bit more through, see if that if you like that really. But it's
Okay.
really just the same feeling as before. Um, and then you get to segment B, which is very similar to the thing that we just talked about. And then you have that little middle part, which I really like. I think that's page 5 now. It's really nice how you play it, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but try to play it in time so that you see what the rhythms are, and then introduce rubato and see where the sweet spot is for you. I think I would go through that. I think it's maybe just me being, like a little metronome crazy. Yeah, I don't know.
No, I mean that's okay. Like it's valid. I understand.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. And then you have to repeat segment A, and then you have to repeat segment B.
Mm.
And here you can think about a similar thing that we talked with Burke before. How do you want to make that different, and in what way you want to make that different? What are you doing now? Like, what is your vision of this second repeat of A and B?
So I guess for like the second repeat, right? It's
Mm,
more. I guess aggressive isn't necessarily the right word. I guess it's just like a lot more prominent, right, than it
yeah.
wasn't like the first time, right?
Mm,
Um, and it's more so bringing out everything. And I always go back to like that lateral thing that we just talked about at the low end of the
yeah.
keyboard, right? That's
Mm,
always like an example that I'll use if I ever talk about this like sort of transition, because with that, it's like for the repeated part of that, it's like all of it is very prominent at that
yeah.
point, and it's not
Yeah.
like the two middle notes are like being buried. So I guess that's like the best example of it. It's just more prominent.
Yeah. You're trying kind of do a bit more on the second repeat with it so that people aren't getting bored. And I think that's exactly perfect. Like I could hear that something is happening. I think you can do that even a bit more, I would say. I tend to find out that I think I'm doing a lot of dynamics, and I record myself, and then I find that I'm not doing as much dynamics as I thought. So it's usually better to err on the side of extreme, I would say. Well, that's at least my my view. Cool. But I think as I said, like it's really nice to get some sort of difference, and we are getting that. But I think it can be even more like prominent in that way, as you said. And then we get to the really nice page 6, and I think that's somehow that page I thought was just kind of spoke to me very well. I'm not sure if you did anything in a different way. Maybe it's just that it is written in time, and that's something that I was kind of, it just kind of grounded me in the rhythm in that way. And maybe in a way, playing the beginning so rubato as you did, and then playing this more in time is perfect precisely for this effect, so that we get this feeling of kind of, oh yeah, now we know what is going to happen. We have some sort of like pulse in that way. And I'm pretty sure you're playing some wrong notes in the third row of that page. I'm not sure. Maybe you can check that again. Maybe it's just my because when I listened to Casey's version, I thought it didn't sound the same. It could just be my ears. I don't know. But check it out and you'll see. And then on the 7th page, you kind of have a similar thing going as we did in the beginning. And then this very slow part that it's just in the F clef. I think you play that part really, really well. I like the kind of, there's a lot of movement, even though it is rubato and stuff. There's a lot happening before, but you take this part with quite a lot of like time, and you keep it calm quite like the whole way through, in a sense. Like the whole that row is really calm, and then you add the octaves and just a bit louder. And I think that's exactly how it should feel. And then when you get to the rubato part, that's, I guess, the 4th row. Yeah, the 4th row on that page. It just feels so calm and nice. So I would say keep that feeling and really like relish in the feeling, oh, this isn't so difficult. We can, chill a bit here now. I think if you perfectly now convey that to us also. Like it just feels so calm and so secure. And I think it's really nice, like a nice contrast to the previous thing. And then when you get to the more in time part on page 8, I think what you do there that is really good as well is like a very clear separation between the accompaniment and the melody. It's written, like Casey writes it very clearly, of course, but it's really very, very clear where the melody is. And I think the accompaniment is like the dynamics are perfect. How you place it, like the right hand is a bit louder, and the time is very nice and flowing. And then when you get to sort of the end of that page, and page 9, the left hand starts getting quite a lot of movement in the material. And I think there we would like to get the left hand a bit more. That I would say like the ending of the 8th page and then the 9th page. I think naturally when you have octaves in your right and you're like repeating notes, everyone will hear that. So it's not necessary for you to play that louder than you are the left when you have like those nice sweeping runs. Of course, I understand they're very difficult to play just because of how many notes you have to play with one hand, and that's a very nice way to try and get super fluid as Casey is with his left. But try to think a bit more about your left in that part and kind of just let the right play the melody, because you know how to play the melody anyway. And I think if you will just switch the focus, it's going to be enough for you to bring out the left hand so that we have something new to listen to in that way. So I think that I think it's going to be perfect. Wait, I should also check my exactly. In this you have a mezzo forte in the 3rd row of page 9. So there's a mezzo forte in the 2nd row, and then you get to forte, and you have a mezzo forte. what to do with that was my my note. What to do with that mezzo forte? There is a very, very long crescendo that goes up to page 10. So it's basically for half a page, you're doing a poco a poco crescendo from mezzo forte to forte. And that's a very long time to do such a small crescendo. So I would say you either have to do more of a decrescendo in the bar before, maybe start it even like on after the last note in the melody. Or maybe what you do is you land on page 10 in a louder dynamic, and then either gradually decrease the dynamic and keep the intensity with whatever else you're doing, because we get like quite a lot of movement again in the left hand there, and like all the triplets in the octaves in the right. Maybe that is enough for you to like step back dynamically a bit. But I felt like from what is written in the music, something more needed to happen there. And I think that's for you to decide. Maybe you do want to dip down a bit lower or do something, you know. I'm sure Caleb will have some good about this. And then again, just as you did on the previous pages, the pages 10 and 9 have a really, really nice build up. I really like, especially when you're doing like the octaves in the right, the build up is really good. The one thing that I'm missing is clarity in the left hand. When you have like the double stops and then you have like some crazy runs afterwards and like all the fast triplets, like the laterals. If you can somehow make that, I'm not sure if you listened to the previous to what I talked about with Burke, but I spoke about Simone Rubino and his way of practicing, like super relaxed and then just slowly increasing the tempo. I think that fits perfectly for this part also. Just really keeping it low and not being keeping it low in tempo and not being afraid of slow progress. I think for me, every time I feel like I don't have enough time is when I don't have enough time, and not because I don't actually have enough time, but because I start practicing in the wrong way. And then I'm wasting time rather than actually practice it the right way and, do it. So I think take the time and you'll be surprised at how quickly actually things get better. And we're all different. Sometimes I got really stressed because some of my classmates, they were super fast readers and they would just learn everything in like a week, and I would be, still on the second page, and so I think be comfortable in taking enough time when you're practicing something that is really difficult, and I think it's going to be faster than you think, and it's completely worth it when you do that also. But I would say the whole page, kind of 10 and 11, is a long build up to the end, the page 12. And that has to be, now what I'm lacking is a bit of clarity in the left hand, but then also, I'm not sure if this is a recording issue or if it's just how I'm kind of hearing the piece, but I would like a massive sound before 12. Like the last bar should really be like, and keep refrain from slowing down before the last bar on page 11. I think you have to keep the intensity with everything that you have. So that means tempo and how you're hitting and dynamics and like articulation, and everything should be like, you keep the intensity. This is like the high point of the piece. So try to, even when things get difficult, try to refrain from slowing down. Maybe what you need to do is simply start the part in a slower tempo so that you have space and you have enough time to play this part without slowing down.
Okay.
And then get as relaxed and get as much height as you can and speed so that you'll get a lot of sound out of the marimba. I'm not sure if you know Christoph Zicki, but like his, I mean, of course he's amazing and everything, but how he looks like when he plays adds so much in terms of, and of course he sounds so mastered. And I think that is who you should think about when you're playing this last part. Is like, go listen to his Velocities recording on YouTube from a couple of years ago, and just like, that is the feeling. Like when he goes completely berserk on all of those runs, like that is the feeling that you want. Like here in the end, just be like, like this, or Grubendel, or any of the, any of those guys that started with Bogdan. So I would say really this is the part where you want people to think, how the hell is he doing this? And then you get to the end and you play the end. And I think it's really nice that you take your time right in the end when you have the mezzo piano things. And it's like actually quite light as, as a difference to what you have been doing for the 2 pages before, even though it is loud and like it's the end. It's really nice to have that. I really enjoyed that little like respite before the last triplet. I think it was perfect. You just kind of everything's happening, and then it's the ending, and then we have one last breath, and then just do, and that's it. That's the piece. So I think that was really, really nice. So definitely keep that, no matter what you're doing, like in the. But overall, I think it was really well played. I hope you get something from this. And if not, I'm sure Caleb will have a lot to say, a lot of very, very good things to say. But keep doing what you're doing. I think you have a very nice overall picture of what you want from the piece. So I don't think you should change that. Try to get to the extremes that we talked about, just so that you can decide what it is that you like the most and that you are able to get to that place. But I think the feeling that you have now is perfect for how I hear the piece. So really good job.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
All right, great. Andy, have you got any questions or anything that you wanted to ask?
No, you covered a lot. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I did take quite many notes on the bus, so I bet.
Yeah.
Good. That's good to hear.
Great. All right. Well, Philip, thanks for doing the extra research and due diligence, listening to the recordings. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, that is, I think, a thing that I've been doing a lot now that I've gotten older. Before, I was a bit afraid that I would get an imprint from the recordings that I'm listening to, and I wouldn't like find my own sound. But now I feel like the more I listen, the more I actually find what I like, instead of just doing whatever it is that I first started doing.
Yeah.
So I would say don't be afraid listening to recordings. I find them extremely valuable. And then, of course, recording yourself and figuring out what it is that you are actually doing. That is the second thing that, of course, none of us do enough, but it's extremely useful as well.
Yeah, for sure. Especially if you listen to multiple recordings as well, you can sort of grasp an understanding of what you sort of relate to and maybe what you don't. So
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to wrap up the stream. Philip, thanks again. Tomorrow, same time, same place, we've got Svet Stoyanov, so we'll